Morning guys, and welcome to another FitPro Live. Yesterday was one, and today we've got another one in as quick as possible, and we're going to try and fill them and get them going as quick as possible, because I know we've not been doing many for the last couple of weeks. But today we've been lucky enough to get Ash Burleigh back on. So some of you might know Ash from previous episodes, some of you may have no idea who Ash is, and some of you might look up to Ash and think he's the online guy that helped me with my systems and all that type of stuff. So yeah, I've managed to drag him on the show today. We were talking about his lights. His lights were over there somewhere.
The lights at the back. Even my Lego as well. You can see my Lego.
Way better than my bold
Lego.
Because it needs to be done. But yeah, so I've been getting tips from Flash already today. But yeah, we're going to talk about what goes into creating an online personal training program. So for you who are thinking about launching online, wanting to try a little bit offline, already online, but it's not going so well, this is going to be the presentation for you. But most of all, Ash, welcome to today's guest interview.
Oh, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure to come on and chat to you and talk about this kind of stuff. Because I do have a bit of a passion for online trainings, you know, and systems and technology. And so I do geek out a little bit. So I do apologize if I start geeking out today on things. But yeah, like one of the things I really want to go through today with everyone who's watching is literally what goes into a great online personal training program. You guys in here will spend a lot of time talking about lead generation, about sales, and there's some amazing software, amazing support out there. But it's all well and good to deliver these different services, you know, to sell these different services, to bring new leads in. But you have to deliver on those promises that you've made to your clients, that you've sold on there. And especially when it comes to online training, that can be quite tricky. And there's a lot of things that people do when they first go online, or trainers go online, that don't actually really lead to a great online program. What normally happens is client adherence is quite low. They don't always check in. They don't always complete the workouts that they want to, you ask them to go and do. Sometimes they feel overwhelmed. And normally, because of all these different things that happened, a lot of trainers lose confidence in the service that they're offering online and tend to offer it way too cheap for what it is. Because they end up offering it way too cheap for what it is, you tend to then think, okay, I'm spending so much time working with my clients online, I'm not getting the same amount of money as what I'm doing in person. And then you end up kind of like pushing the online bit to the side. Where if you actually go about this in the proper way and you look at actually how you build up your deliverables properly and what goes into a great online personal training program, you'll find that you can actually get better results for your clients online than what you can in person in most cases, just because of the level of support you can give them when it's structured properly. And you spend a lot less time actually working with your clients. So it makes it much more scalable and allow you to make a lot more income, a lot more profit anyway from it. So that's the kind of stuff I want to talk about today, and just kind of go really what goes into it based on the data and stuff that we had. Before I kind of get onto that, as David said there, like some of you may have met me before, some of you may have actually worked with before. Just give you a little bit of the background of for me and where I'm coming from and where all this information is coming from. My background is a coach and as a PT. I actually started off in the adventure industry, take people rock climbing, kayaking, that kind of thing, and then got into the fitness industry as a progression on from that. Had a studio, had an online personal training business, was successful in both of them. And then as I was doing that, I got introduced to a software called PT Distinction that many people have probably heard of before, and actually integrates really well into LeadDeck, believe it or not. But yeah, we got involved with PT Distinction. It was a software that I was using as a coach. And when that happened, we got invited into their Facebook group. I started just helping out, giving advice to people. We had people asking questions. I was just helping out. And eventually the owners got in touch with me and said, actually, can you do some more with us? Can you help us do masterclasses? That kind of led on to a Done For You service. And it's this Done For You service that's actually put together all the data that I'm about to go through with you today. So our Done For You service is trainers and businesses will come to us and we will build out whatever it is you wanted. So like David, for example, will come to us and say, okay, I want to build these systems for my online program, or I want to build a hybrid program or something like that. And we go and set everything up for them. But we do whatever you asked us to do. So we kind of got an insight into what actually works and what doesn't. We had data from things that didn't work too well online and data from things that work really well online. So we took all that data and we used that to create a course called the Online Personal Training Certification, which again, you actually can get access to through LeadDeck, which we can talk about a little bit later on. We pull all that data together for that certification. And I want to talk about some of that data today. And I want to show you literally what goes into these programs, the different types of online personal training you can do, and try and find the right approach for you if you want to go down this route. So that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today with you, if that's all cool, everybody. Right. So how do I get this screen up? That's the next question, isn't it? Awesome. Cool. So happy days. Can everyone see that? Yeah.
We can all see that. We can all see it.
Awesome. So the first thing I want to talk about here is the 6 different levels of online personal training and how to deliver them. Now, most people think, generally speaking, online personal training is online personal training. There's only one type of online personal training that you can do. Some people think there's 2, with online and hybrid, but there's actually 6 different types of online personal training that you can offer. I want to go through those 6 different levels and explain how they affect your business and the approach that you actually take, and hopefully try and find an approach that you can actually take with your business if you want to go down the online route. So as you can see here on the screen, these are the 6 different kind of levels of online personal training, starting from the bottom right away to the top. Now, just because one's at the bottom and one's at the top doesn't necessarily mean one's better than the other. It's just a different approach. And I want to quickly run through these with you and talk about what things you need to kind of think about and include when it comes to your online personal training programs. So let's start right at the bottom down here, which is this kind of automated, the level 1 at the bottom. So this is the fully automated program. Now, automated doesn't necessarily mean you have to have loads of cool technology in order to deliver that kind of stuff. It is obviously possible to do, and you can do some pretty cool things with like tech automation. But automated can literally just be a PDF that gets delivered. You could go on to something like Lead Deck, go onto like a landing page, email in, download a PDF, away you go. That is technically online personal training. If you have a PDF with some programs in there, nutrition or whatever, and send it to your clients and they purchased it, that's still online training. You're still delivering training and services online to your clients. Now, this is 100% hands-off, and generally speaking, you'll have no interaction with your client. So once you've actually sent them that PDF, that's it. There's nothing to do with it. And this is probably one of the earlier types of online personal training that came around. And it probably was one of the most popular ones in the very early days. I'm not mentioning any companies themselves, but there's a lot of companies out there that did really well on this model. And there wasn't many of them around at the time, but this is how most tend to start out. We then have the next level up, which is level 2. This is supported automation. In fact, funny enough, one of the most, I'd say probably one of the most successful online personal training programs actually follows this model. But I need to talk about how they got successful before you start jumping into thinking that's just the one I'm actually going to go and do. So supported automation is the idea that your program delivery is automated. So this might be sending a PDF or something like that still, or it might be delivering it through a software such as PT Distinction, but the support is offered in like a group format. So this might be like a Facebook group. So a Facebook group will go alongside this information that's been sent out to the client, and then you can support them through there. You might do lives in there, you might answer questions in there, that kind of thing, and build a community around what's been delivered. It also could be through some other types of feedback as well. So you might be doing like a group coaching calls, like a Zoom call inside there, where you have like a Zoom call or something like this. It could be that kind of thing as well. The next one I want to quickly go up to is level 3, and then we're going to kind of talk about those 3 in a bit more general about what things to think about. But level 3 is semi-automated. So this is the program delivery is automated, but support is offered via maybe in-app feedback. So you might give some direct feedback to the client based on what they're doing, but you wouldn't tweak and edit and adapt the programs. A good example of actually this, which I'm sure many people have heard of before, is Joe Wicks and his Body Coach program. That's basically follows this level 3. It's a semi-automated program. It's the idea that you have they've kind of purchased the program itself. They have, I think now, like 2 or 3 different versions of it, and then it gets delivered to them based on their needs to start off with. So 2 or 3 different versions. Goes out, it's all automated, and they just offer support to them. So they get like a call with one of their coaches every month, and that's pretty much it. So again, automation in terms of delivery, you're not tweaking, adapting anything. You're offering a bit of one-to-one support, but it's more just through having conversations with the client, not really changing anything. Supported automation, completely automated in delivery again, but you're offering like a group format in terms of support, like a Facebook group. And fully automated is, like, here's your program, here's your PDF, here's whatever. So these bottom 3 ones are probably what most, they agree on this or not, but most personal trainers, when they think about online training, tend to think what online training is all about. That's what they tend to look at to start off with. One thing I think is important to remember about this is, and the reason we have a sliding scale here, is generally speaking, the lower down this scale you are, the lower price that offer tends to be. So when you tend to have this level 1 stuff here, you're probably selling things at a lower price. Level 2, maybe a tad more. Level 3, maybe a tad more than that. But generally speaking, you're not talking about real high-end price points for these type of things, which means in order to actually make a decent income from it, you need to have volume. You need to be selling lots of these different things. That's why, for example, on the automated programs, this level 1, you might see a lot of influencers on Instagram or fitness models and things like that selling that type of thing, because they're trying to actually utilize their high number of followers who trust them to buy that stuff. So that's what you tend to see with that one. But I think that's an important thing to remember. If you're a personal trainer and you want to go and run an online business, and this is the approach you want to take, you kind of need to understand that you're not really going to be a coach or a personal trainer if you're working on these kind of levels here. What you're going to be really is a marketeer and a salesperson, and in all honesty, probably a customer service agent, especially if you're up here somewhere. You'll spend a lot of time answering questions, not really about coaching. So if you're looking at doing this type of thing in your online business, it's really important to remember that you're not going to be spending a lot of time coaching people. You're going to have a higher churn rate, which is basically means you're going to have clients going through your programs quite quickly. You're going to need to bring in new clients all the time as well in order to start making income. And if you're going down this route, you want to be looking at using, not necessarily in terms of like a Peter Distinction as a software to deliver stuff. This really would be more suited to something like LeadDeck. So, or a similar kind of software where you can actually automate the deliverables of stuff. And you've got systems in there in order to try and drive traffic into, through ads or whatever it is to go and purchase this, and have the systems in place for your lead generation, have your systems in place for your sales, because they really are going to be the two most important things you need to focus on when it comes to these things here. One thing to bear in mind with this as well is that the lower end down here, you tend to have a low satisfaction rate. And what I mean by satisfaction rate is that most of your clients aren't going to get the best results possible with these things down here. They're just not going to do it because there's no real coaching, there's no adapting for their lifestyle or anything like that. Yes, if you do your job right in terms of working out who your niche is and who you want to work with and all that kind of stuff, which is a lot more important when it comes to online personal training than what it is for in-person training. If you get that right, hopefully the majority of people that purchase your programs will be people that can get results from that program, but there are going to be people that aren't. And it might just be that it's not followed it. It might be because it doesn't fit into their lifestyle or whatever it is, but it means that you're going to have a lot of people aren't going to have a high satisfaction rate. So you need to make sure you keep on top of things like reviews, keep on top of like testimonials and things like that, and try and collect them as much as possible, because you're going to have to utilize those things in order to counteract the low satisfaction rate of a certain number of your clients that aren't going to get the best results because you're literally delivering cookie cluster programs. That's literally what you're doing here. And again, all that kind of stuff, I know it sounds like a lot can be automated. And I've had to play around with LeadDeck before, and I know you can do that kind of stuff in there. So if you are looking at doing this type of thing for your program, there are things you want to be thinking about when it comes to that. But I want to talk about these next 5 levels, next 4, 5, and 6 level up here at the top. So you've got your custom automation, your semi-customized, and your customized. These really are more coaching orientated programs. So if you're a personal trainer, you want to get great results for your clients online, and you want to do it in a way where you're not going to spend like literally hours and hours and hours staring at computers all the time. These are the kind of approaches you actually want to take. Now you'll notice here, this number 4 is in like a bigger circle. This here is what we call custom automation. And the idea here is that a program is delivered automatically, but it's adapted to the client. So this is what you would do as a coach, you'll adapt it to the client. This here is the main program we tend to recommend that people start out with when they're going online. If they've never really gone online before, they're not entirely sure what approach they want to take. If you go down this route here, it's going to allow you to build a program that's going to get results for your clients and is not going to take you a huge amount of time as a coach if your systems and stuff are in place properly. And this is really what we tend to focus on the online personal training certification. We kind of show you how to set this up and how to do this effectively. And I'm going to break that down in a second to show you, what will go into this type of thing. But this is where most people will probably aim at. So if you're not sure the route you want to take online, it's this level here I would recommend that you start at. Now, we do have a level above that, which is this level 5. So this is kind of semi-customized. The idea here is that all your onboarding processes are automated. So the onboarding process is completely automated, but the program itself is created from pre-made, we'll call it groups in this case, based on the client's needs and feedback. So the idea here is you'd follow whatever process it is. They would answer some forms and questionnaires and things like that. And depending on their outcome, you'd probably have a selection of maybe templates, nutritional stuff, or whatever is already pre-done. And based on their needs, you then go and deliver that to them. So effectively, if you use something like PT Distinction, you could tick a box depending on what their needs. That version of the program will get delivered to them. That's basically what semi-customized is. So you're not going in and changing the nitty-gritty detail, but you are basically going in there and customizing it to that particular client. The next one above that is what's called fully customized. This is normally what's done for very high ticket programs. So if you're selling a very high-end program for a client, you would still automate all the onboarding. There's never any need for you to go through like hours of onboarding with clients. Onboarding should pretty much be the same kind of process for anybody, which means it can be automated. And for example, using something like Lead Deck, using something like PT Distinction, you can easily automate this entire process. So you automate all the onboarding. You then build the program around the needs of the client. So it's a lot more customized. Like I say, it's normally high ticket stuff. It's also probably more suited to working with athletes and that kind of thing. Whereas level 4 and level 5, which are probably the most popular versions that we tend to see now with actual coaches and PTs, this is more suited for general population, which is where most people tend to work anyway. And you can kind of use this in general population because, as we mentioned earlier, if you're targeting this right when it comes to getting leads in, then you're going to attract the right kind of people. And I mentioned a little bit earlier on the importance of understanding who it is you actually want to work with. You do that for your lead generation. You do that in terms of how you're making sales, but it's also extremely important when it comes to your program design for your clients. Because if you want to go down this route here where you can build a scalable online business, so you can have like 100 odd clients online and not have to spend ridiculous amount of time dealing with them online, you need to really understand your client. And if you get your targeting right, you get your avatar right, you'll know that the majority of your clients are all starting from the same place. The majority of your clients have the same goals. They're all going to want to finish in the same place. And their kind of barriers, if you like, that they go through during a program are all roughly going to be the same. So the more you understand your client, the easier this process is going to be for you, because you can actually tackle those things ahead of the client actually knowing they need to tackle those things. So it can all kind of work in your favor if you really understand who your clients are. So yeah, these are the 6 kind of main levels then of online personal training. And again, if you like, I can grab a screenshot of this if you want to have a look at this and just have a think about where you'd like your business to fit. Bear in mind again that down the bottom, this is normally you need high volume at low price. And the further you go up here, the less volume you need and the more you can generally charge for the service that you're actually going to deliver. When you're up here at the top, because it's more higher in prices, you don't have to have as many clients in. You tend to go through sales call processes and things like that, and that kind of thing. Where down here, you generally wouldn't do sales calls. It'll all be about driving people into landing pages and sales pages and converting them, just because the actual profits made on each one of these, because the volume you need, it wouldn't be worth it getting on calls with them. So it's just about understanding what kind of approach you want with your business when it comes to the online side of it. Do you want to be more of a marketeer, or do you want to be more of a coach? Number 1, marketeer. Number 6, full-on coach. That's basically the way to think about this when it comes to the online training side of things. Does that make sense at the moment? I hope it does. So the next question I want to ask anyone that's watching this is, what do you really do when you PT a client in the gym? This is the question we ask everybody that comes to either join the course, when we have our onboarding calls with them. What do you actually do when you PT a client in the gym? Because what we tend to see happen is when a personal trainer starts in the gym and then goes online, that they kind of forget this question. They kind of go from, okay, these are the processes I do in the gym, but now I'm going online. What I'm going to do is give them everything but the kitchen sink in order to help them get the result that they need. And that's the complete opposite thing of what you actually need to do. What you need to do is take a step back and think about what it is you actually do when you're training a client in the gym, but really, really think about it. Because a lot of the things you're actually going to do in there is you're going to be coaching your clients. You're not just a personal trainer, you're going to be coaching them. Even if you don't know you're doing this. I mean, how many times have you worked with a client in the gym, you've had a conversation between lifts about nutrition, about lifestyle, about sleep, about things they've been up to, and you've just given advice. And it's because you're prompted by that client, and because you just know, because you've got that experience in there, that knowledge in there, you give them really good information back, you ask them the right questions, you're actually coaching them around the session stuff they're doing in the gym. What we need to try and do is figure out, how do we do that, and how do we get that information and put it into a program that can be delivered online without you actually being there in person. And again, this is why understanding who you want to work with and having a good niche and a good avatar really helps, because what it allows you to do is really identify who this person is that you want to work with, and then you can work out what these questions will be and include that into your program. So how do you actually, once you've got that information, how do you include that into your program and do it, as I mentioned a second ago, where you're not actually there with them? So you're training clients in the gym, and you've thought about all these questions and things that you ask and talk about with your clients inside the gym and think, right, I've got all this now, and I want to go and put that into a program. So you could take all that information and just drop it in there. But as we kind of mentioned earlier, doing that's probably not the best approach, because if you give them too much information too quickly, they're going to feel overwhelmed, their adherence is going to drop, and they're not going to get the best results possible. The reason that's going to happen is because, again, you're not there with them. This is online, so you're separate from that. So if you was to give clients all this information, maybe in the gym or studio, maybe you give them a big welcome pack with all the nutrition stuff or other things they can do, mindset stuff, sleep stuff, whatever, you can kind of get away with it. But I can almost guarantee you that that client has not actually read that pack fully, and you'll have conversations with them when you meet up with them in the gym or the studio. That's generally what will happen. And you don't have that luxury as an online coach because you're not there with them. So what we need to do is change how this is delivered and how we approach this program. And we do that following this approach here, which is assess, apply, accelerate. And again, feel free to screenshot this if you want. But this is the approach we try and show people how to do in the online personal training certification, how to get your content and break it down like this. Now, in this example, I'm just going to use a 12-week program just because it's easier. But it doesn't matter whether it's 12 weeks, 12 months, 18 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever. It doesn't matter. The principle is still the same. And we split this up into 3 different areas: assess being the first, apply being the next, and accelerate being the one after. So the whole idea is you will actually assess the client during the first few weeks of the program. And you wouldn't just give them everything at once. You wouldn't say, let's go and do assessment, let's go and do a fitness test, let's go and do results tracking, let's go and complete these forms, let's go and do a food diary, or whatever. You wouldn't give them everything to start off straight away because it is literally too much for them. Again, if you're in person in the gym, you can do it with them. There's someone there to guide them. When you're not there with them and you just say you need to do this, 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 and this, they're probably going to go, oh, crap, this is a lot more than what I thought it's going to be. And they're going to feel like failures before they've even started. So we need to stop that from happening. And it's this assess phase that we do it. So what we basically do is we get them to do one particular thing. So I'm going to use nutrition as an example here because it's the easiest one to relate to when it comes to this type of thing. Maybe in the first week, you might introduce them to tracking some food. So they're going to take photos of their food. And then as you get into week 2, what you might do is start assessing their activity level. So how active they are in that week. But then down here, you can see we have this apply phase that also starts in week 2. So what you'll do is you look back at what they've done in week 1, you take information from that, and then look at how you can then improve on that and apply that into their program. So maybe if you've looked at their food diary, you might ask them to make 3 or 4 changes. You can ask them to make those changes here. Then as we get into week 2 up here in the assess phase, we introduce activity to see how active they are. And then down here, when we get into this next week, we then introduce other ways they can be more active into it. And the whole idea is you'll assess bits and then I keep applying it in this next phase. So assess, apply, assess, apply, assess, apply. The reason this is really, really important when it comes to online personal training is a client might onboard and fill in a massive form with all this information in and say, this is what I eat, this is how active I am, this is how strong I am, this is what experience I've got. The 99% of the time, they were going to exaggerate or they're going to not be as good as they say they are. Basically, that's what generally happens on these forms. So again, you're not there with them. It doesn't matter if a client is lying or exaggerating or whatever on a form when you're working with them in person, because they're going to turn up at that session with you in the gym. And if they walk in and do some stuff with you, you can see it. You can see, they're not as strong. They haven't got the experience in lifting that they said they had. They clearly haven't been eating the way they had, because you can see it. You're there with them. You can have those conversations. It doesn't happen online. You're not there with them all the time. So what you need to do is have this assess phase to break those things down. And then you can start applying those things in order to basically test to see whether they are actually where they say they're going to be. And that way, it's going to give you a much safer online program. And it's going to get better results for your clients because you're not starting them ahead of where they need to be. You're actually starting them exactly where they need to be. You're making sure that what they say they can do is actually what they can do. And then once you've got that during the supply phase, what you can actually do is start creating a program around that. And then you can start accelerating up from that. So basically what you do is you start building up on top of that over time. So instead of actually saying, okay, we're going to do X, Y, and Z straight away, jump straight into it, what we're actually doing is saying, okay, now we've applied these things we've got from this first phase, we're going to start building on this. A bit like learning a new language. You know, you wouldn't go and learn, if you want to learn German, you won't go and read War and Peace straight away. You learn some basics in there. So we're learning some basics down here, and then we're going to start to apply these basics and build on that over time so they become better at what they're actually doing. And that's generally how you would deliver an online program for your client. Again, this is just an example over 12 weeks. You know, I've exaggerated some things in here to make it easier to see, but this is the principle you'd go through whenever delivering anything to your clients online. It just means you're more likely to get better results. Your client adherence is going to be much, much higher. And you're also less likely to injure your clients as well when you go down this approach, because you know exactly where they are, you know exactly what they're capable of, and you can build a program progressively around that. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. I'm going to see David nodding in the background if it makes sense or not. Cool. So it's all me well and good doing that and saying that's what you need to do. So I figured it'd be easy for me just to show you an example of that. So what we've got here is a 12-week program, and I've broken down what's going to happen in each week within this program. And I also want to quickly run through this, and this here follows that approach that I've just talked about. So that assess, apply, and accelerate approach. This is actually an online program. This is the online program that we actually give you as part of the online personal training certification to start off with. Then you'll get all the content for this white label content. If you're using PTD, you just click a box and it's in your account ready to go. You can deliver this with to your clients. The reason we do that is because we want to give you an example to start off with so you can actually see how this approach works. And then obviously we show you how to tweak it and adapt it. But feel free again just to screenshot this in the recording or whatever and use this as a guide and just adapt it to suit your approach based on what we've talked about already. So you can kind of see here, we have this kind of phase one bit here, which is mainly this kind of assess phase. So in the first week, we have like, you know, onboarding and download the app, some starting photos, goal setting, managing expectations, 3-day food diary, assessing the food diary to make a few little changes based on what I talked about before. This will literally be over that first week. And each of these tasks wouldn't take long. It sounds like a lot there, but when you're doing this, especially online, you want to make sure nothing takes you more than maybe 3 minutes a task. 3 minutes is probably the optimum time. If you're giving a client a 30-minute onboarding video and then asking them to complete 6 or 7 different forms, they're each taking 10, 15 minutes each, they won't do it. What will probably happen is they will not do it, and you'll end up having to jump on a call with them to talk them through and get that information from it, which is wasting your time. There's no point doing that. If you structure it right and onboard them properly, you won't have any of those issues. So you can take this type of approach here, slow down, almost have week one as like an onboarding week when you actually bring them into the program. Then what we're going to do is go into week 2. So again, we can talk about how we're slowing this kind of process down here, and like I mentioned, assessing and then applying. So we've already got these 3 changes here that they're going to apply into week 2. And now what we're going to do is give them like a breakfast task. So we're just going to say, right, I want to focus on breakfast this week. I want you to come up with 3 go-to breakfasts based on some guidance that we give them, you know, some food choices or whatever. And then that's what I want you to have a go at tracking this week. So just take photos of those meals and just pick any of those 3 go-to meals throughout the week. We then maybe introduce some activity into this and workouts, some very simple ones. And of course, we do some results tracking in there as well. Week 2, we build on that. So we continue doing breakfast, but we also then introduce the lunch task. So you can kind of see here how we're starting to progress on each week all the time. So adding a next bit to it, next bit to it. So it's slowing down this process, but adding progression each time. So now we come up with 3 go-to lunches for them. We look at increasing activity. We do some more results tracking, start getting some progress photos in there. Week 4, we do exactly the same thing again, but we introduce an evening meal task or dinner task. Exactly the same process again. But if we actually look at this, what we've done here, within this first 4 weeks, all this can be automated, by the way, and you don't have to do anything here. But within that first 4 weeks, the client has become more aware of the food that they're eating. They started being more active. They started taking some responsibility for changes that they've made within that first week. They've made themselves 3 go-to meals from food they actually like that's going to be conducive to the results they want to get. They've done 3 go-to lunches and 3 go-to dinners. So in the first 4 weeks, they know a lot more about themselves in terms of what they need to eat. They've also learned how to meal plan without you actually teaching them how to meal plan. They've learned more about the different foods and macronutrients because they've been building out their own meals anyway, just using hand portions or whatever for it. And they're starting to understand portion control. And you've done nothing. You've not taught them. You've not done anything. The reason that works is because we've slowed down this process and we're starting to get them to do one thing Assess it, apply it, assess it, apply it, assess it, apply it. And of course, you can introduce coaching calls into this. You can tweak things if you need to and give feedback on it, but you've not had to go on there and have that conversation with them. So this means you can have a lot more of a hands-off approach. And even if you're tweaking, adapting, and giving feedback on this, the majority of coaches that we tend to see go through the certification, on average, would spend 10 to 15 minutes a client per week with this type of program. That's all it would take you to do. If we then move on to the next bit here, we have weeks 5, week 6. You can see we kind of build on this a little bit. We start talking a bit more about macronutrients in here and tracking. So if you're using something like MyFitnessPal maybe, and you want to learn how to track calories, now they've built this up in this first week and they know how to make their own meals up and things like that. Get them to download MyFitnessPal and track it. Don't set them targets yet, just get them to track the food that they're eating so they can actually practice tracking. Because the majority of people, if you're working with general population, not many of them have ever really tracked food properly before. And even if they say they have, they may not do it the way you want them to. So at this point here, we can kind of get them to build up these kind of meals at the beginning of the first few weeks. Now we're just going to have a go at tracking it with MyFitnessPal, or if you're using PTD, you can have the built-in food diary that's in there. They can track all the food that's in there. And as they're tracking all that food, they're going to just start learning more about, oh, that's how many calories I'm eating. What are these micronutrients are actually in there? Learning more about the macronutrients that they're eating as well. They're going to start to pick up these different things and they just practice doing that over time. So again, it's not like saying, let's overhaul your life away you go, because when you do that, you're going to get 101 questions and the adherence is going to drop. Again, we're still building up on top. And this is kind of like acceleration I was talking about. We're slowly accelerating that process. Then what we can then do is start giving them actual calorie targets. Effectively, what we do now is now they've understand how to build their meals. They understand how to track it and what goes into it. Now we can actually start giving them targets. We can say, this is what protein I want you to have. This is the calories and stuff I want you to have. Targets are set. And they're now in a position where they can easily go and do that because that's what they've been practicing and building on over the first part of the program. And that's really the kind of approach you want to be taking when it comes to online. It's going to make it a lot easier for you to kind of be a bit more hands-off. It's going to mean all you got to do is tweak and adapt things, and it's going to reduce the amount of questions that you get. So if you're doing online training now and you find that you come to every coaching call and you're spending time talking about how do I do this or how do I do that, or I'm not sure about how this works, or you're just saying, okay, you haven't really tracked this one, or you're underreported here, or you've not been eating this, it's because you've actually done things too quickly. I'm 99% sure that's what the problem will be. Slow that process down and think about this approach we just talked about here. Assess, apply, accelerate. Don't be scared about it being too slow. It won't be. I promise you it won't be. And they will still get the same results at the end of it because their adherence is going to be much higher. And that's what matters. It's better to be, imperfect on this and then take action than try and make it perfect for them, but the best results possible than not take action on it and their adherence drop. Does that make sense? Hopefully. If it doesn't, just let us know and I'll try and explain it a bit better. Now, I want to bring up this bit here because a lot of people ask when we're doing that, and I mentioned there about things being slow and about, what about when you're talking to clients? You talk about automation there, you're talking about, okay, if you're not speaking to them, how they're going to stick to the program. Well, when it comes to people sticking to program adherence, it's not necessarily about your ability to speak to them. You don't need to have to speak to a client all the time in order to keep them adherent to the program. What you need to do is make sure that it's, one, as we mentioned already, progressive and simple enough for them to follow. And if you make it too complex, they're less likely to stick to it. So simplify it and build upon it. The other thing I think is important to remember is when you do this kind of process with online training is that you actually have more touch points with your client than what you would do with in-person training. And this is why I'm a massive, massive believer that if you have a well-structured online personal training program, for the majority of people, you'll get better results online than what you will in-person train them. And we've seen that throughout the data, like constantly for all the people. We've worked with like thousands of personal trainers helping them set up their businesses using these kind of systems, and we see it time and time again. The results are better online, and it's because of these touch points. When you structure your program properly, if you look at this here, that example I've given you, these are all the little touch points that your clients get throughout each of their weeks. This is you just literally only a few seconds every day for the most part of these, but it's them being reminded that you're there. It's them actually saying, okay, I've got to do this. It's something I need to take action on. I've got to check in on this habit to say I've done it. I've got to take a photo of this meal. These are all things that are keeping their progress at front of mind as they go throughout their day, as opposed to, okay, I've got 2-3 sessions this week in the gym. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm not going to go there for another 2 days or 3 days. And when I was at the gym, I maybe did a 45-minute session, had a 15-minute conversation with my coach. I've got to remember all that. But really, life takes over. And then you'll come back a few days later, you ask them how they got on. They might, yeah, I did this, but this happened and this happened. I didn't quite stick to exactly what you said, or I forgot about what you said. This kind of approach can stop all that. And it is all about these small touch points and this progression as you go through. So yeah, again, don't be worried too much thinking that, you know, you have to constantly be on calls with people and things like that. You don't have to be. It's all about structuring your program properly when it comes to your online training. So again, I'm going to rush through these a little bit because I know there's not a huge amount of time. I feel aware that the timetable is at the moment because I said we'll be off here for within the hour. So what about the actual content that goes in? You know, we've looked at that content there. I've broken it down to show you what's in there. That's obviously just some recommendations that we've done. But you probably have your own content and training that you want to put in there. So if that's the case, how do you actually take your content? How do you decide what goes into an online program and what doesn't go into an online program? I mean, the first thing you need to do is, as we mentioned already, you need to understand who your actual client is and who you want to work with, which is why it's important to have a good, clear idea of who your avatar is. But then once you've done that, you're going to have content to put in. And one of the most common problems that we tend to see when trainers come to us for the first time is they have all these amazing resources that they want to put in, you know, different books, different PDFs and things like that. And that's all well and good. But if you just chuck that in there, that's just information for your client. It's not going to help them. You're going to have that overwhelmed problem. If you think back to that assess, apply, accelerate approach we had before, if you're just throwing information in there, it's not really following that approach. And we know already that that's the best approach in order to get the best results possible for your clients. So again, I recommend you screenshot this and use this. And every time you want to put something into your online program, make sure it follows this SMART approach, which is simple, measurable, accountable, results-driven, and transparent. The idea here is that the thing you're asking your client to do, it needs to be simple. It needs to be the minimum viable dose. So it's the simplest version of that particular task you can get them to do that's still going to lead them to their result. Anything more than that is just a waste of time for the client and a waste of time for you. So you really want to try and simplify this right down. The next thing you want to do is make sure it's measurable. So both for the client and for you as well. So you need to make sure that whatever they do in there, it has to be measurable. Now, for something to be measurable, they have to take action on it. If they don't take action on something, then you can't measure it, which basically tells you that if you simplify something right down, if you're putting information into a program that the client can't then take away action and it's something you can measure, it doesn't need to be in that program. It's not going to benefit them. It's not going to actually move them towards their goal. All it's just doing is give them more information that they don't need. If they want more information, they can go to Google. That's the way I look at it from here. You want to keep your program as simple as possible. Next thing you want to do is accountable. Like everything you ask them to do, they need to be held accountable to it. So what can you do? That piece of information you put in there, if it's measurable, what can you do to hold them accountable to make sure they're actually measuring that progress? So let's use a habit, for example. If we want to make a real simple version of a habit, let's just use water. Maybe the simplest possible version is to drink a glass of water when you wake up in the morning. That might be the simplest version of it. To measure that, it's like, okay, every time you do that, just check off a habit in your app to say that you've actually done that in the morning when you get up. And that will in turn hold them accountable because we can set a notification to go out to say, hey, make sure you drink your water this morning, tick it off, and away you go. The next thing, probably the most important one on here, is results driven. So everything must progress towards the goal of the client. So if you put something in there and it doesn't directly move the client towards their end goal, it's pointless. It doesn't need to be there. So just get rid of it. So unless it has a direct impact on moving them towards the goal, forget about it. It doesn't need to be there. The next thing is transparent. Everything should be ridiculously clear for the client. One of the big issues we tend to see is some people follow the first part of the SMART process, but they just don't make it clear about what the client needs to do. And it's this lack of clarity that causes problems. So if you don't have clarity in the tasks that you put in your online program, that's when you're going to start getting questions from your clients about what's going to happen now, what's happening next, how much you're going to go and do this. And we can follow this process here called the what, why, how, when, and then. And again, just quickly screenshot this if you want. So when you pop it in, you need to make sure that every task you ask a client to do should follow this thing. It's what should the client actually be doing? Briefly, why will this help the client? I'm going to come back to why in a second. How can the client actually complete this task? When should the client be doing this? And what can they actually expect next? If you do all these things, the clarity is going to be there and you're just going to reduce your questions from your clients 100-fold to probably nothing for the most part, because they know exactly what's going to happen, know what they should be doing. They understand some of the basics behind why they're actually doing it. So yes, you want to explain to them the benefits of maybe water or protein or whatever it is you're asking them to do, but don't go too much into the science. Again, remember what they're actually there from the first place and who you actually want to speak to. Most of your clients couldn't care less about the science behind what they're doing. They want to know why it's going to help them. And that's the why you want to be talking about here. Don't explain the sciencey stuff. They really don't care. What they care about is, okay, how is drinking water going to help me get to the goal I want? What's it going to do to benefit me? Or why is eating protein? What's that going to do to benefit me? That's the why you want to put in there. Explain exactly how they're going to complete that task. Not just from like the day-to-day stuff of it. It's like the technical bits that you need them to do, because that's what they're going to be worried about when it comes to the online stuff. It's like, yes, let's say if it's talking about protein, eat protein at every single meal. Maybe that's a habit you want to introduce. So you're going to have like a palm-sized portion of protein at each meal. So you explain that to them. We're going to eat a palm-sized protein at each meal. And then what we need to do is in your app, check off to say that you've actually done that. Nice and simple for them. Explain when they should be doing it so they have something to relate this task to. Like it's like, okay, you should be doing this at each meal, at the end of each day, start of each day, whatever it is. So it's nice and clear. And then what to expect next. So this is what they expect from you. I'm not saying you have to go into detail of what it is. It might just be as simple as, okay, I want you to do that for the next week. And then on Friday or the end of the week, we're going to be talking about your next task. That means they're not going to be chasing you thinking, okay, what we're going to do next. You've made this really, really clear for that client about what's going to happen. And if you follow that approach, it's going to make your life so much easier. Okay, I'm going to skip through these bits because we kind of talked about this already on the first one. We'll just talk about automated programs and the benefits of them and the things you need to think about. So we don't need to go into too much detail about this now. So I'll skip through a few of these because I don't think we actually need to talk about them. One thing I do want to say, though, is when we talked about those different levels, those 6 different levels of online personal training at the start, and we talked about the pros and cons of them. For example, the ones at the bottom, they're going to be more, they're highly automated. You need lots more volume, become more of a marketeer. The one at the top, more of a coach. Don't have to sell as many. It's normally more high value programs. The advantage is if you have the right systems in place, you can build it so you can actually offer the same program across all those different levels. That's one of the things we do inside P2Distinction. The reason we use P2D for it is because it allows that to happen. But even in principle, you can still do that with anything. And what we talk about in the course, the reason we start on that level 4 one is that if that's built out and you follow that, if you then decide you want to go more down the automated and sell high volume at lower cost, it takes not long at all to tweak that program to be able to do that. Conversely, if you want to go the other way, if you think, actually, I want to do more high ticket, high value stuff for my clients, it doesn't take much for you to tweak it and go the other way. Again, that's what we talk about in the course. So that's why we start you at that number 4, that one in the middle, because that's generally what the data shows is the best way to go for the majority of online personal trainers, especially when they first start out. But we then show you how to tweak and adapt it across those different levels. So as your business progresses, your goals progresses, what you want to do as an individual and with your business progresses, we can then show you how to adapt and adjust it depending on the level of personal training or online personal training that you want to offer. So there you go. That was my keeping an eye on the time at the top just for you there, David. But yeah, that was basically a nutshell of what kind of goes in from the data we've seen into an online or successful online personal training program. There you go. Nice. Appreciate it. So if anybody that is watching, if you've got any questions, do post them down below, or obviously just feel free to reach out to Ash as well to go over this stuff. But like Ash was saying, you kind of want to pick. It's almost like the same as pricing. You always should have 3 pricing levels, and you always go for the middle pricing level. So you can always build down and you can build up. The same for this. Dive into the middle portion, which Ash was saying. At least then you can work your way up and you work your way down depending on the client's needs to make your life easier. So yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. It's just it's just been the easiest way for people to get started. One of the hardest things we tend to see for new personal trainers that want to go online, even people that's been going online and just struggling to get going. There's a lot of coaches out there and PTs that do just struggle to get that momentum going. And some of it's obviously in lead generation, some of it's obviously in sales, but a lot of the time it's just in the actual deliverables. Like they just don't know how to deliver something. They're just spending hours and hours working with clients, having issues going backwards and forwards. And it's just getting those right systems in place for it to make it easier. We do have, we've obviously got quite a decent relationship with David and Lead Deck. And as you probably found out a couple of weeks ago, the software that we tend to recommend to people, PT Distinction, integrates directly into LeadDeck. You also may have seen as well the OPTC that's actually integrated into LeadDeck as well, which means it gives you access to the online personal training certification. I want to quickly, if it's okay with everyone, just to talk very, very briefly about what that certification is, what it's all about and how it works, and also show you how you can actually get access to that if it's something you're interested in doing, if that's cool with everybody. So first of all, the online personal training certification is literally a certification for personal trainers that want to take their business online. And the whole idea is to help you make the most of your online fitness business. So you'll have all your systems and content ready-made. We have a massive white label library that has everything right the way from lead magnet stuff to your main flagship offer and content you deliver, all the way through to ongoing membership programs where you can deliver content. It includes habits inside there. It includes workouts inside there. It includes all sorts of nutritional stuff for different variations of it as well. It even includes like emails and links and things to help, upsell you between these different levels as well that's in there. So everything's kind of pre-done that you can plug and play directly into your PT Distinction account. Or even if you're not using PT Distinction, we have a Canva version of that white label library, which has all the tracking and stuff and everything in there that you can use, that you can have access to, and you can use in any kind of software you want. So all that content there, we've actually got about 19 months worth of constant content delivered to your client. So you could quite comfortably use all that content, run a program, and you wouldn't have to create anything for any client for 19 months. You could let it run if you wanted to. So there's plenty of content in there to use to help you with that. We also show you how to actually take your skills and experience of the personal trainer and transfer them online. So obviously I briefly went through some of the things we talk about in there. We also go into a lot more detail on that, and we show you how to apply that as well. I'll talk a bit about this application side of it in a second, how the certification works. But we talk about how do you take your skills as a personal trainer and what things do you have to do with those skills to deliver them online in a successful way and in a safe way. And also, everything you need basically to set up a fully functioning, scalable online fitness business is in here. So you go through this course process, you'll have everything you need to actually run a successful and scalable online personal training business. Everything will be there ready for you to go. This works alongside our coaches at PT Ninja as well. You have access to something called the Academy, so you can actually jump on calls with me, Jed, and the rest of the team. If you've got any questions, we have hybrid working sessions each week as well, which are like group classrooms on Zoom. You can just jump on, ask questions, get some work done in there. There's even an option to have it all set up for you, which I'm going to talk about in a second, because we do have a bit of a deal that I did with David that I think you guys might like, where you can actually have everything set up for you. And again, we'll talk about that in a second. And we then also look at things like marketing, lead generation, the sales, delivery systems, everything basically you need to have in place. So we look at the kind of the 8 fundamentals that every business needs and how that applies to the online world. And obviously we talk a lot about the LeadDeck stuff in there as well, like how this will be linking with LeadDeck in order to actually have all these systems work for you and in your favor when it comes to the online side of things. And of course, you can become a certified online personal trainer at the end of it for both a practical and theoretical assessment. And a lot of people think, how do you do a practical test for an online personal training? That's what I was mentioning earlier. Everything we're doing here is about actionable stuff. So as you go through the certification, we'll actually get you to action certain things, and you have to provide evidence that you've actioned it in order to pass your actual certification. So it's not just about here's some information, learn it, answer a few questions. You actually have to go and do the stuff we're asking you to do, provide evidence that you've done it. That's when you'll pass. Because one of the best ways to help, to know that you understand something is for us to see that you've actually taken action on it and actually done those things. That's kind of how that process works. So in terms of this kind of offer thing we put together, there's 2 things on here. The first thing, if you're already a LeadDeck member and you are interested in the course, there's 2 ways you can actually, 2 offers I've actually got on here. The first one is, if you want before this Sunday, you want to sign up to the course, you can use LeadDeck 25. You can put that code in and it will discount 25% off the price of the course for you to do that. Now, it's lifetime access to the course. You get all the support and stuff with it as well, access to the white label library and the updates and stuff we get. But one of the deals we've got with David is that if you do sign up for the course through your LeadDeck portal, so if you're already a LeadDeck member and you sign up through your LeadDeck portal, if you go in there, OPTC, sign up to it, we'll upgrade you to our gold package where we have everything set up for you, which means if you're using PT Distinction and you're using LeadDeck, we'll go into your PT Distinction account. We'll set up all the content for you. So that's 19 months worth of programming content already set up for you, nutrition and all the workout stuff in there. We'll then do all the technical integrations and automations and put it into LeadDeck for you as well. So it's already all set up for you. And we'll do that for you for free. That's normally worth an extra £600 on top of this. But we'll do that as a freebie for you as well. And you'll also get this extra 25% off if you use the Lead Deck 25 before the end of this week, before Sunday. The other thing we're going to do as well, if you are not a Lead Deck member yet and you're thinking of signing up, we'll pop a link somewhere around here. I'm sure David can sort of help for us. I don't know where it's going to put the link, but I'll put it somewhere. If you use that link, where it'll be in the comments or whatever, to join Lead Deck, we'll give you access to the course for free. So you won't have to pay a penny as long as you use that particular link in order to go and sign up. So yep, they're the two offers, 25% off to the end of the week. And if you're already a Lead Deck member, you want to use that to go and sign up, then we'll also upgrade you to the gold for free and do all the technical setup for you as well. And if you're thinking about using the Lead Deck and you're on the fence and you want to go and do that, if you use the link, you can then get access to the online personal training course for free as well. So there you go. That's me done talking.
Nice. Yeah, we got one person commented earlier saying, I'm interested. They wanted to know more. So yeah, all the information on everything Ash has been going on is there. But I think some of the things that a lot of people should consider is to go back to the start. And Ash kept saying take screenshots. But yeah, go back, take the screenshots, start implementing some of this stuff. And then at that point, if you haven't grasped it or you need the extra support with doing it, then definitely jump on these things. But me and Ash are quite the same in our mind. We'd love to give you all this information so you can go out there and do it yourself, have a go, and then if you need us, we're always here. But yeah, setting up an online business sounds difficult. I know people make out that it's also quite easy in the way they market their stuff, but a lot goes into it. And like you say, Ash has covered all those elements there. And you talk about the 8 fundamentals of business and so much more. We need to get those right. Get those right, and you will have a long-term online fitness business that will continue to either stay at the level that you want it to stay at, or you can keep scaling it.
Yeah, that's exactly the point what the course is to help you do that. But like David said, like, if anyone's got any questions or just want us to chat about anything or talk about these things in more detail in here, whether you just want a little video or another training doing, just let us know. You know, we're both very same on this. We'll try and help as much as we possibly can. Try and give you as much value as we can.
And October, just keep your eyes peeled for the date in October. I don't remember what the date was. What was the date?
Yeah, I think was it first week in October? No, second week in October sometime.
Something like that, yeah. So if you're based up near the Midlands or just a bit higher than the Midlands, then keep your eyes peeled because we will be doing an event. But Ash, I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much for coming on. And for everybody watching now, or if you're watching the recording, do let us know in the comments what you thought of Ash's insights into the online fitness industry. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.
Awesome. Cheers, everybody. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate you coming on. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.